Hi guys, I'm Vicky, and I have no fucking clue how many years I've finally strummed my guitar. Tuned, because I usually play on my electric guitar, but someone broke my fucking cable, so now I gotta play with this shit. But I've missed it. I'm so happy. Okay, let's get into the video! Okay, so I wanted to talk about something today that is very controversial, and I might get a lot of hate, but before you hate on me, I beseech you to listen to me and hear what I have to say. You do not have to agree with me or anything, and I just want to state that I will be commenting on a YouTuber, but this is in no way becoming a drama channel, and I don't really want to do this for drama. The reason I'm talking about this subject is because it's something relatively close to home, and not because I'm interested in being a drama channel, because I am not. So if you're a fan of this particular YouTuber, or you just want to hate on me because of what I have to say, that's totally fine. You have every right to be his fan, and like, please don't hate on me. But if you really want to, you can. I just beseech you to listen to what I have to say, because even if you're a fan and even if you like him, you can still agree with what I have to say. Like, I don't think this is a situation where you really have to choose a side. But basically, this guy called the Rewired Soul on YouTube, and he's a drug addict that doesn't use anymore. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this out there. I say drug addict that doesn't use anymore instead of ex-drug addict, which a lot of people say, because you can't really stop being addicted to something. So you can be an alcoholic that doesn't drink, a drug addict that doesn't use, because you can't stop using and you can't stop drinking for your entire life, and that can happen. But the fact is that the structures in your brain just change, and so this, for instance, I don't know how it's called in English, but I think it's something along the lines of dry alcoholic syndrome, I think, where you don't drink anymore, where you're kind of clean, but you still have some alcoholic tendencies in a way that you sometimes act like you were still drinking, even though you are not, like, behave in such a way. This is not every alcoholic has that, but I'm just saying that the reason I say that instead of ex-alcoholic or ex-drug addict, it's because the structures in your brains just change, and even though you don't use anymore, if you were to use just once, you might spiral down again. So I'm not saying this to be mean to anyone, to say, oh, this guy's definitely using. No, that is not my point. I'm just telling you how it looks from a biological, psychological point of view, so you understand. This is in no way supposed to be mean or anything, but so he is a drug addict that doesn't use. I think he doesn't use anyway. And he has a drama channel, basically, and now I have nothing against drama channels. I don't want to be one myself, but I don't have a lot of drama in my life because I stay away from it, because I hate getting into fights and shit. But I will be honest, I like watching a little bit of drama on YouTube from time to time, mostly because I don't have drama in my own life, thankfully. So, like, I have nothing against drama channels. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, the news of YouTube, so, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you're not exploiting people. But he's basically a drama channel veiled to be a mental health channel. Now, I say that because what he does is he says he takes YouTubers from the community, and based on them, he shows you how to improve your mental health. Now, the reason a lot of people hate him is because he's not a professional, and he still gives advice, even though he has absolutely no knowledge. Well, he has some knowledge from his life, but like, that's not everything. I've got some, I don't know, medical knowledge from my life, because I have fucked up my knee for the 4th time in my life in the past 3 years. So, like, I have some knowledge, but I wouldn't call myself a doctor just because I have some knowledge on the topic. My mother is basically, she's nearly a professor, because she's like she's done a PhD and she's doing something else, and then you can be a professor in this country. So she's nearly a professor of religious studies, so I know a lot of religious studies things because she talks about them a lot. But that does not mean that I particularly am someone who who is a specialist in the religious study thing, because I am not. I have a mum from who I know a lot of things about it, but I am not a specialist. What I do specialize in is neurobiology and neuropsychology, because that is what I study, that is what I'm a student of. I also specialize in teaching and in being a teacher and a nanny, because I have done that for more years than I can count now, and I just have a lot of experience, yeah? But I couldn't say I'm a specialist in religious studies or in medicine just because I don't, just because I have some knowledge. But that's why a lot of people hate him, and a lot of people also hate him because under the guise of helping people, even though he's not a professional, even though he's not a certified psychologist or a therapist, he sells mental health courses which I think cost $99 per hour, which is crazy. Therapy costs less sometimes, so yeah, that's crazy, but that is not what I want to talk about. So that's why people dislike them. I'm just putting it out there. I want to talk about what really pisses me off in this situation, and I think you can agree with me and still be his fan. I don't think you gotta choose. Also, of course, you don't have to agree with me at all, but a lot of people say, wow, Chris, if you really want to do all these things, why don't you just get certified? And I think I know the reason, because if you are certified, as I mentioned, I'm studying to be a psychologist. I will not be a clinical psychologist. I mean, I plan on doing a clinical specialization, I plan to specialize in clinical psychology, but my main goal for now is neurobiology and neuropsychology. So I want to finish biology and then I might go into clinical, but I will definitely not be a therapist because I just don't want that. I don't want to be a therapist. But it doesn't, no matter what kind of psychologist you are, because in every, basically, in every part of psychology you work with people and you have doctor-patient confidentiality agreement. So I will have to have that as well. It doesn't matter that I'm not a psychotherapist, I will have that with my patients anyway, and with the people I test and the people I help. And if you get a paper, if you get a degree, if you get a course, you gotta do that. You have a confidentiality agreement, and the people that you talk to and talk about, you have to have their agreement to do it. And this guy doesn't really care that much. Like, as I mentioned, I don't really care if you think what he's doing is right or if you think what he's doing is wrong. There's one thing that he does wrong that I do not like, and it's the fact that he's basically exploiting mental health. I understand if people say, hey, okay, it's fine for you to talk about mental health, but then there are people who are not okay with it. For instance, Trisha Paytas, who I know a lot of people hate. I don't personally have an opinion on her, but there is one thing that my studies in psychology have taught me. If someone says no, it means no, and you have to respect no, especially if you're dealing with mental health. If someone says, hey, I don't want you talking about this, you just don't. You don't do that. And if you are a trained psychologist, trained therapist, if you have a degree, a course, whatever, and you break this, you can actually lose your license. You do not, under any circumstances, have the right to disclose your patient's information, and you do not, under any circumstance, have the right to talk about it, especially without the person's agreement to it. I am sorry, I cannot talk for live today, so I'm sorry if I talk like shit. And this is basically what this guy does. So there's Trisha Paytas, who has mentioned multiple times, hey, I don't want you to talk about me, and he keeps on doing it. Then there's this guy called Julian Solomita, he's Jenna Marbles' boyfriend, and this guy basically diagnoses him with ADHD, which you can't diagnose. So, okay, basically when you study psychology, at least in my country, you have a course in diagnosing people. It doesn't matter if you're going for clinical psychology, neuropsychology with neurobiology like me, or social psychology, business psychology, you have a course in diagnosing people. So you have a course in all that shit, and I have done that course already. And there's one thing I can tell you, you cannot diagnose people based on YouTube videos. Number one, people don't really show who they truly are. Like, I try to be super genuine with you guys, but there are just things about my private life that will never be out there because I don't want them to be out there. So if someone tried to diagnose me, they might diagnose me because of blue hair and I'm goth and talk weird things and, you know, say fuck a lot, but they can't diagnose me based on my life experiences, because the things that I have been through are my own, and I will probably never tell you guys because, well, I don't like telling people in general. There's a lot of my friends who don't know, and, you know, I don't want to tell people. It's like my own business, right? So number one, you don't put everything out on the internet. And number two, you sometimes pretend to be someone who you're not. And a lot of the vlogger community just does that. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Do you think Jake Paul would be getting so many views if he was a genuine guy? I don't know, maybe nice or something? No! He stages his vlogs and he's being a douchebag because that gets him views, and I guess that's okay as long as you don't film a dead body in the forest or anything. My point is that a lot of people fake who they are, and number one, and number two, a lot of people don't really put out everything about their lives, so you can't diagnose them. It's the same how you can't get diagnosed with a mental illness based on an internet test. It's because your psychology is so much more than just answering a bunch of questions. Also, you can lie in those bunch of questions, and it's easier for a person to see if you're lying or trying to fit into a specific illness than for a computer. And so you can't just diagnose someone without talking to them, and especially you cannot diagnose someone without them agreeing to it. And this is I had a problem with this when it came to Shane Dawson's series about Jake Paul. Like, I know it was all staged, probably, and I like Shane Dawson. I really like the guy, don't get me wrong, but I think that what Katie Morton did, if it wasn't staged, because if it wasn't, okay, but if it wasn't staged, she basically broke an ethical code. You're not supposed to diagnose someone who doesn't know about it and without their agreement. You gotta, in psychology, in the world of psychology, you have to have an agreement for absolutely everything. And I mean like everything. And it's not only in Europe. From what I know, it's how it works all around the world. You gotta have agreement from the person you're diagnosing, you're talking about. You just have to. And this guy doesn't. Now, of course, this guy isn't a certified psychologist or therapist, so he doesn't have to. But even if he isn't, I still think it's really not okay to be diagnosing people and talking about people who don't necessarily want it. I don't know. I don't want people diagnosing me. I don't want people talking about me knowing who I am, because most people don't know that much about me. I'm a very private person and I talk a lot, but I don't really talk a lot about what's in here. You know what I mean? And I don't know, I would hate it if some random dude who has never met me in my life, never talked to me in my life, just did a whole video about how Insomniac Vicky is actually schizophrenic, or how Insomniac Vicky is actually, I don't know, bipolar, which I am neither. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against people with those disorders. I actually have a family member with a disorder like this, so I understand you are people as well. I am not saying anything bad about mental health. I'm just saying that diagnosing me with something, not knowing anything about me except for the fact that I'm goth and have insomnia, because I feel that's basically what this channel revolves around, and that I'm a nanny, a tutor, teacher, and a neurobiology, neuropsychology student. There's not much you can say about me. Like, you don't know me. And, okay, there are people who've been on the internet much longer and have put much more of their lives forward, but it's the same with them. You haven't spoken to them, you don't know them personally, you can't diagnose them. And as I mentioned, it's also not okay. And I know that this isn't how YouTube works, I know this isn't how the world works. You can't just say, hey, I don't like what you're doing, and think the person would stop. That's how it should work. But it won't, unfortunately, which I think is very, very not okay. But I think it would be a nice thing to do, especially for someone who's promoting mental health. If you're promoting mental health, just stick to it. If someone says no, it means no. So stop. Okay, you want to be a drama channel disguised as a mental health channel, go for it. I don't buy that shit, but I am in psychology, I'm in neurobiology, this is literally my life, my world. So I don't buy that shit. But okay, there are people who like your channel, and that's totally okay. Just please don't use it to make fun of people, or to talk shit about people, especially when they don't want you to. Because diagnosing somebody with a mental illness who doesn't want to be diagnosed or doesn't have this mental illness is a very mean thing to do. It's just not okay. I mean, I don't know how I can say it, but in my opinion, it's just something that is really hurtful and really not okay, not to mention that it also teaches the young audience that self-diagnosing is okay, which it is not. You can't self-diagnose mostly because you don't know half of the things that actually come with an illness. They're not written in the internet. So, you know, just because, for instance, you're sad and you have problems sleeping, that does not say that you have depression. There are so many illnesses like that, or it could just be hormones. Like, there are a million things, right? Just because you have those two things, it doesn't prove depression. You can't self-diagnose. Mostly because it's hurtful towards people who actually do suffer from a mental illness, and then there are just people going around parading like, hey, look at me, I'm depressed, ha ha ha, I'm so funny. No, don't do that. That is hurtful, and that's kind of what you're doing, diagnosing people with something they don't have. Please stop. That's literally all I'm talking about. Those two things irritate me as someone who lives and breathes in the psychology, neurobiology world. Please, I beg you, do not diagnose people because you do not have any way of diagnosing them unless you know them and unless you're trained. I'm sorry, but there's so much more than they write in the internet. There's so much more to diagnose. I can make a whole video about what it's like to diagnose, although I can't disclose how we diagnose because that's just a trade, a trade thing. I can't disclose all that. But there's just so much more than finding a few things on the internet and saying, hey, this person has this. And number two, please, if someone says no, it means no, and this goes to everyone. And this goes to everything. It doesn't matter. Someone doesn't want to come over to your house and says no, yeah, that's no. So this kind of goes out to everything. No means no, okay? Let me put it out there. No is no, especially in the community where everyone can see it. I understand that we are people, public figures. I mean, maybe not me that much, but Patricia Paters, Julian Solomita's are public figures. But it doesn't change the fact that they have a right to have a private life, and if they say no, please respect what they said. That's literally all I'm asking. If you ever see this video, please don't end up hating on me like you did on Primig. That is not really what I'm doing here. I just want you to understand that you can be hurting people. I don't care if those people are fucking asses, okay? I don't. Just no means no. That's all I want to say, okay? Thank you. As I mentioned, maybe you agree with this, maybe you don't. That is totally okay. You have every right to have your own point of view. I'm just saying how it looks like from my perspective, from a person who actually lives in a psychological, neurobiological world. This is my life, this is my everyday, and literally all the things they tell us about is ethics. Is the main thing they teach you in psychology. Ethics. These are the ethics, you have to do them. You have to go by the rules. That's what they teach us every single fucking year. And it just irritates me that there's someone out there breaking them in the name of mental health. That's all I wanted to say. But of course you are entitled to your own opinion. If you don't agree with me, that's totally okay. You can comment why you don't agree with me. I will try to understand your point of view. And I hope this wasn't too ranty, and I hope I'll probably have to make this shorter. Anyway, hope to see you next time. Subscribe to my potato face, comment something nice if you have something mean to say, because it's always better to be nice, and like, and I'll hope to see you next week. Bye bye. Mwah.